Today we're going to look at common quantifiers. Before we start, let's discuss quick overview and purpose and form of the quantifiers. So, the purpose. In academic writing, quantifiers are useful because they increase the accuracy and precision of sentences. So, generally in academic writing, you want to be accurate and precise in your sentences. So, let's look at a sentence that has a general meaning and is not very accurate. Uh, Parents were happy with the school and liked everything. This sentence is not accurate. It's too general. This is because it implies that all the parents liked the school. It doesn't really. It's not as precise. We can make this sentence more precise, more accurate by adding a quantifier. So, for example, most parents were happy with the school and liked everything. This sentence is more accurate, more precise, because it suggests that some parents may have had some complaints. Some parents, if not few. Let's move on now and talk about placement. Placement, yeah. Quantifiers are placed before nouns. Okay, moving on. Quantifiers also follow a quantifier of noun phrase pattern. Let's look at three types of these. Okay, three patterns of these. The first one is quantifier of determiner noun phrase. What is a determiner? Determiner are words such as the, this, that, though, these, those, and such. Let's look at an example of this pattern. Most of the parents came to the PTA meeting. Here, most is a quantifier of is the preposition, of course, the determiner, the, and the noun phrase parents. Let's look now at this pattern using a possessive pronoun. And so, for example, what is a possessive pronoun? Me, their, our, your, her, his, it. And let's look at an example of this. Few of their children spoke at the meeting. Here, the quantifier is few. We have of. The possessive pronoun is there. And the noun phrase is children. Let's look at the same pattern, only with an object pronoun. And what is an object pronoun? Me, them, us, you, her, him, it. These are object pronouns. So let's look at an example. Let's look at an example of this. Most of them stayed home. Here, them is an object pronoun. Moving forward, quick overview. We will be looking at four different types of common quantifiers. These are common quantifiers that work with both count and non-count nouns, those that work only with count nouns, those that work with only non-count nouns, and those that are used for comparative to make comparisons. These are called comparative quantifiers. So moving forward now, let's look at count and non-count, at quantifiers with count and non-count nouns. A quick little short review about what we mean by count noun. Count nouns are nouns that are countable. Things such as, if I can count it, then it's a count noun. For example, I can count fingers, one finger, two fingers, three fingers, four, five, six fingers. I can count people, one person, two people, three people, four people. I can count blocks, one block, two blocks. Basically, count noun is any noun that can be made into a plural. There are specific quantifiers for count nouns. These are a few, a great many, both, few, many, and several. They work only, these quantifiers work only with count nouns. Let's look at some examples of how they function, of how they work. A great many, okay? A great many parents were happy with the school. Both A and B. Both parents and teachers met on parents' night. Several. Several students came with their parents, and many. Parents asked many questions. Okay, let's look at non-count nouns. Non-count nouns are nouns that are not countable. This is, for example, information. I can't count information. I cannot say one information, two informations. Generally, non-count nouns cannot be made plural. They're usually, if not always, singular. Um, you know, money is always singular. It's non-count. Time, it's always singular. It's non-count. So let's move on now. The quantifiers that work only with non-count nouns are a great deal of, a little, little, and much. Let's look at 3 examples. A great deal of. A great deal of information is on the internet. Little. He was very cheap and spent very little money on himself. And much. Her family was big. So much food was needed for them. So much food. Okay, moving on now. Some quantifiers work with both non-count and count nouns. And these quantifiers are all, almost all, no, and some. Let's look at examples of count nouns and non-count nouns working with all, starting with count nouns. All students came to class. All. Okay. Looking at non-count nouns. All information is stored on the internet. Looking at no with a count noun. No parents missed their chance to meet teachers. Looking at no with non-count nouns. He was cheap, so he spent no money. Okay, now let's look at comparative quantifiers. These are used when making comparisons. Less, more, and fewer are comparative quantifiers. We use these when we make comparisons. Less usually only works with non-count nouns. There are exceptions, but I will not list them here for the purposes of brevity. So let's see an example. Let's read an example. A cappuccino has less milk than a latte. Okay, milk is a non-count noun. More can work with both count nouns and non-count nouns. Let's look at an example of a count noun with a count noun. So more people started traveling in 2021. Let's read an example with a non-count noun. In 2020, people spent more time with family. Then moving on to fewer. Fewer only works with count nouns. Let's look at an example. Fewer tourists traveled in 2020 than in 2019. Okay, moving on now. We can also increase the accuracy of comparative sentences with comparative quantifiers. We do this by using adverbs such as substantially, significantly, considerably, and slightly, and we place these before comparative quantifiers. So, for example, significantly fewer tourists traveled in 2020 than in 2019. Here, the adverb significantly shows us that there's a big difference, and that more people traveled in 2019, like a big difference than in 2020. Okay, so this without significantly, we don't know that how big the difference is, but once we add significantly, we our statement becomes more accurate. Okay, this is also useful when we are reporting the results of tests or a survey. Moving forward now, let's quickly summarize our quantifiers. So quantifiers are placed before nouns. Most parents. My quantifier is most. My noun is parents. Quantifiers are also follow quantifier of noun phrase pattern. For example, most of the parents came to the PTA meeting. The quantifiers for non-count nouns are a great deal of, a little, and much. For example, a great deal of information is on the internet. The quantifiers for count nouns are a few, a great many, both, few, many, and several. For example, parents asked many questions. Less, more, and fewer are used when making comparisons. These are comparative quantifiers. For example, in 2020, people spent more time with family. And lastly, adverbs can be placed before a comparative quantifier. For example, significantly fewer tourists traveled in 2020 than in 2019. And by adding that adverb, I show how big the difference is. Okay, this concludes my presentation. Hope you enjoyed it. If you have any thoughts, questions, or concerns, please email me, and I look forward to seeing you in class. Thank you for listening.